Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I'm back with some more esoterica. Today we are diving back into the works of Mr. Eliphas Levi. This is Transcendental Magic, its Doctrine and Ritual. We are reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various points brought to light by the text. It is not the format for everyone, but people do find value in it, so you are more than welcome to tag along as we continue our exploration. Before we begin, however, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in the terminology, there will be several playlists linked in the corner above, in the box down below, along with the original source material and the link for my book, so you can get a better understanding of who I am and why I say the things that I do. With that being said, let us dive in and probably piss some people off with Part 2, Chapter 13, Necromancy. We will start off right now with me stating unequivocally that there is no circumstance whatsoever in which you should be attempting to bring back the dead. That is going to be a hard, unequivocal no for me, and if you have been tagging along at all, you will realize that that is not something that I say lightly. That is not something that I say arbitrarily. You should not be violating the will of anyone else. You should not be violating destiny. And you should definitely not be trying to usurp the powers of God, all three of which lead you away from necromancy. Now, let's dive into the text. We have boldly declared our opinion, or rather, our conviction, as to the possibility of resurrection in certain cases. I do not doubt that it can be done. I doubt that it is wise to do. It remains for us now to complete the revelation of this arcanum and to expose its practice. Death is a phantom of ignorance. It does not exist. Everything in nature is living, and it is because it is alive that everything is in motion and undergoes incessant change of form. Old age is the beginning of regeneration. It is the labor of renewing life. And the ancients represented the mystery we term death by the fountain of youth, which was entered in decrepitude and left in new childhood. This was the search for eternal youth, which is a thing that has been a thing since people realized, I'm going to die one day. It is foolish, right? You should be endeavoring to be in the best health that you can to prolong your life for as long as you can with the best possible results, right? If you are exercising regularly, you'll have a longer life on average than people who don't, and you will enjoy that life considerably more than the people who don't. You should be doing that, right? But the point of that is not to keep you young, right? It is to make you healthy so that you can enjoy your life. It's not about being young. If you are searching for young, then that is a pride issue, and you are going to have the repercussions associated with pride from trying to do so. Your body does regenerate, right? It does, like every 7 years, I believe it'll be 8, but the current belief is every 7 to 8 years, there is a complete change of your body. Every cell in your body has been completely renewed every 7 to 8 years. I believe that. I absolutely do. Your taste change, like what you used to think was nasty, actually tastes pretty good. You do change, right? Over time. That is part of life. You are supposed to change. You are supposed to grow. You are supposed to overcome. If you're not doing those things, then you're being stagnant and you're not accomplishing your mission in life. Your mission in life is not to live forever. Your soul is already eternal. Your body doesn't need to be. And if you are attempting to make your body eternal, then you're trying to take over the powers of God, which is a horrible, horrible idea. The body is a garment of the soul. This I believe emphatically, right? I believe that this is the temple of God. It is a 5D navigation device given to you to have an experience, to learn lessons, to do things. It was given to you, the individualized spark of divinity, which is your soul, which inhabits the body. You are a spiritual being having a human experience, right? You are not your body. You are your soul. That is a different thing. Now, the spirit, that's a whole different thing. We'll link the video once again, but that is the part that allows everything to happen. The spirit makes you breathe, it keeps your heart pumping. Your soul doesn't do that. You're not making that decision. That's happening because of the spirit. You decide to wiggle your fingers, the spirit sends a signal to your fingers through the electrical impulses of your body. That's how the mechanics of it works. I do believe that the body is a garment of the soul. When this garment is completely worn out or seriously and irreparably rent, it is abandoned and never reassumed. But when this garment is removed by some accident without being worn out or destroyed, it can, in certain cases, be put on again, either by our own efforts or by the assistance of a stronger or more active will than ours. Here's where I get to talk about something that I don't often get to talk about. I've had a couple of near-death experiences, and it's not like what other people, right? What is commonly attributed to the near-death experience is someone dies and there's the light and they go to it, and then there's this whole process by which they meet a family member or they talk to some heavenly body or something, and then they get the realization that they need to come back. When I had it, it was not that, right? I got knocked out of my body. Whether that is considered an out-of-body experience or a near-death experience is completely up to you. I look at the out-of-body experience as more of a voluntary thing, or like a meditative whatever, not related to trauma. When I was a child, I was on top of a ladder. Like I was like 5, maybe 6. No, I was 6, maybe 7, because we were living in Slaughter, so it had to have been in that time period. And there was a park across the street. Me and my little brother was over there playing. Mama was at the house, right? And there were other kids there, and we was on top of the slide, and this other kid decided he wanted to slide, and I didn't get the chance, and he pushed me off of the slide, and I fell down, and I got knocked out of my body. Like I was completely outside of myself. I was looking at me. My body was reacting. I wasn't in it. I had to make the decision to re-enter my body. And I did, right? And even as a kid, I was like, okay, I'm going back. I went in my body. I vividly remember the feeling of squeezing back into the vessel. That happened to me again when I was about 15. Another trauma incident knocked me out of my body, and again, I decided to get back in it. That happened to me again when I was in the Navy. The same thing. I made the decision to get back into the vessel. Nobody else should be making that decision for you. And this gets on shaky ground because we do that daily. Every single day there is somebody out there resurrecting the dead. Every single day. Clear. CPR. Mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. All of these are things where we're interfering with life. You should not be magically interfering with life. If your job is an EMT and you are trained to help save lives, then God bless you. Be about your business. Do the best you can. If you are a doctor, same thing. Do the best you can, right? This is your calling in life. Don't do it magically, right? Even if you're a doctor and you have the opportunity, don't call someone back from the dead. There are unintended consequences which you will absolutely face. We have done a video about unintended consequences. Well, we read the story of the monkey's paw. If you're unfamiliar with the story, it is all about the unintended consequences of trying to call somebody back from the dead and not understanding what you are doing. It is the same for this, right? If you're an EMT and you're shocking people, that's your job. You're going to have to deal with that on a different level, right? You are calling someone back from the dead. You are interfering with fate. That is a real thing. We do surgeries and save people all of the time. People having heart attacks and strokes and various other traumas. We save their life all of the time. Not magically, right? It is a physical, practical application of things. There are less karmic consequences from that, right? Especially if it is something that you feel called to do, right? Your calling is to be a healer. You're not going to get in trouble for healing as long as you are doing it in accordance with the laws. Magically is a whole different issue. Where you invest your energy is a whole different thing than what you do with your life. I know that sounds a little bit weird, right? What do you mean? I'm doing my job with my life. Yeah, but you're not investing your energy in it the same way. It's not me pushing my energy into a dead person, right? Even if I'm doing the electricity, that's the electricity. That's not my energy. That is a whole different level of responsibility. And I just wanted to point that out. If there is a near-death experience and you choose to get back in your body, that's perfectly fine. If someone has died and you have access to the proper life-saving physical techniques, do your thing. But if someone dies and you attempt to bring them back magically, it's probably going to be bad for you. Back to the text. Death is neither the end of life nor the beginning of immortality. That is, again, something I believe. The soul is eternal. It was somewhere prior to being here. That would have been the beginning of immortality. It will go somewhere when it ends, right? And so you've already got the immortality. We're here for experience. We're here to enjoy life, to learn, to grow. Some of the lessons really suck, but we're here to learn the lessons. It is the continuation and transformation of life. Now, a transformation being always a progress, few of those who are apparently dead will consent to return to life, that is, to reassume the vestment which they have left behind. It is this which makes resurrection one of the hardest works of the highest initiation, and hence its success is never infallible, but must be regarded almost invariably as accidental and unexpected. A transformation being always a progress, few of those who are apparently dead will consent to return to life. That is true, right? For the most part, there are bad spirits, right? There are people who have hung around. There are way too many stories of hauntings for that to not be a reality. Now, it is firmly in the realm of speculation because we cannot prove it, so it is what it is. But there is enough circumstantial evidence to at least lean in the direction that they are there, right? But they are exceptionally rare. It is very, very rare to come across a hostile spirit. Now, that is talking about the spirit released from the temples, not the entities. There are definitely hostile entities out there. But to come across someone who is clinging to this mortal plane after death is exceedingly rare. You almost certainly will not become one, right? You have to really be holding on to that problem, whether it is bitterness about a relationship or the circumstances of your death or whatever it happens to be. You've really got to cling to it to keep your soul on this plane whenever it's time to go home. Most people go home immediately. Most of the time, if you are attempting to do this, you will not get a response. They will not return. Or if there is a return, it won't be the entity that you thought it was. That is another one of the very real problems with necromancy. You don't know what spirit's re-inhabiting that body. You may think you do. You may want it to be something, but you don't know. And several of the entities, they can deceive you. They can make you think that that's the right person. They probably won't act right. There will be something about it. It's like, something ain't right with him since he almost died. Maybe it was the experience. Or maybe it was you pulling this entity in, making it possess this body. Be careful. Makes resurrection one of the hardest works of the highest initiation. It is important to remember that Mr. Levi's attempt at necromancy did not end at all as he thought it would. To raise up a dead person, we must suddenly and energetically rebind the most powerful chains of attraction which connect it with the body that it has just quitted. It is, therefore, necessary to be previously acquainted with this chain. Acquainted. Then, to seize thereon, finally to produce an effort of will sufficiently powerful to instantaneously and irresistibly relink it. All this, as we say, is extremely difficult, but is no sense absolutely impossible. The prejudices of materialistic science exclude resurrection, at present, from the natural order, and hence there is a disposition to explain all phenomena of this class by lethargies, more or less complicated with signs of death, and more or less long in duration. If Lazarus rose again before our doctors, they would simply record in their memorials to recognized academies a strange case of lethargy accompanied by an apparent beginning of putrefaction and a strong corpse-like odor. The fact that he stunk when he came out of the cave should tell you something. The exceptional occurrence would be labeled with a beginning name, and the matter would be at an end. We have no wish to frighten anyone, and if out of respect for men with diplomas who represent science officially, it is requisite to term our theories concerning resurrection the art of curing exceptional and aggravated trances, nothing, I hope, will hinder us from making such a concession. But if ever a resurrection has taken place in the world, it is incontestable that resurrection is possible. Now, constituted bodies protect religion, and religion positively asserts the fact of resurrections. Therefore, resurrections are possible. That is a ridiculously stupid logic chain. Just because the people in control say a thing does not make it true, and the assumption that that is a thing is telling a little bit of something about you. Just because it has been written for a long time doesn't make it true. Just because people have practiced it for a long time doesn't make it right. People once thought that it was perfectly fine to own other people. We no longer believe that, right? But the institutions, they firmly believed that. They firmly fought to keep that in place. Not all of the things that you learn from institutions or constituted bodies are true, most especially if they are dealing with religion. See the Bible study if you are confused. From this, escape is difficult. To say that they are possible outside the laws of nature and by an influence contrary to universal harmony is to affirm that the spirit of disorder, darkness, and death can be the sovereign arbiter of life. Let us not dispute with the worshippers of the devil, but pass on. It is not religion alone which attests to the facts of resurrection. We have collected a number of cases. An occurrence which impressed the imagination of Greuze, the painter, has been reproduced by him in one of his most remarkable pictures. An unworthy son, present at his father's deathbed, seizes and destroys a will unfavorable to himself. The father rallies, leaps up, curses his son, and then drops back dead a second time. An analogous and more recent fact has been certified to ourselves by ocular witnesses. That means they saw it. A friend, betraying the confidence of one who had just died, tore up a trust deed he had signed, whereupon the dead person rose up and lived to defend the rights of his chosen heirs, which his false friend sought to set aside. The guilty person went mad, and the risen man compassionately allowed him a pension. When the Savior raised up the daughter of Jairus, he was alone with 3 faithful and favored disciples. He dismissed the noisy and the loud mourners, saying, "The girl is not dead, but sleeping." Then, in the presence only of the Father, the Mother, and the 3 disciples, that is to say, in a perfect circle of confidence and desire, that is an important thing, right? We've talked before about the accordance of will, right? If you are not in perfect accordance with your own will, you will produce 0 magical effects. You have to have a destination in mind, even if you have to firmly keep in mind that the destination might be barred from you. You have to have that accordance of desire. You have to desire the effect. If you don't, it will not happen. It is exceedingly hard to find 2 people in that type of an accordance. These 2 people believe that this thing needs to happen exactly, right? It is harder than that to get 3 or 4 or 5 exponentially. It is exceedingly difficult to do magical works with effects with multiple people. For that reason, you have to be aligned for the stated goal, for the desired goal, to the exclusion of other things, while holding in mind that you might not get it. And so, unless you have a perfect circle of confidence and desire, you're going to have a really, really hard time doing anything with multiple people. He took the child's hand, drew her abruptly up, and cried to her, Young girl, I say to thee, arise. The undecided soul, doubtless in the immediate vicinity of the body, and possibly regretting its extreme youth and beauty, was surprised by the accents of that voice, which was heard by her father and mother trembling with hope, and on their knees. It returned to the body. The maiden opened her eyes, rose up, and the master commanded immediately that food should be given her, so that the functions of life might begin a new cycle of absorption and regeneration. Now, there's some insertion in here, right? We don't know that the soul was undecided. We don't know that it was in the immediate vicinity of the body, although it most probably was. Possibly regretting its extreme youth and beauty. Is that what it was regretting? Is that what the soul was regretting? It wasn't the missed opportunity for 80 years of life. It was the fact that she was pretty. That's what it was. I wonder why Mr. Levi would focus on this youth beauty when there was no description of that, right? I'm fairly positive, right? I haven't read it in a long time, but I'm fairly positive it didn't talk about how pretty she was. Right? I don't think that it mentioned the accents of his voice. I don't know that it mentioned that it was heard by her father and mother, although they were in the same room. It's probable, right? Trembling with hope. Did it mention the hope? No. I'm not even sure that it mentioned that they were on their knees. Now, it did say that it returned to the body. That part is true. Right? That extra flair, the added narrative. Why? To make it sell better? Okay. The maiden opened her eyes, rose up, and the master commanded immediately that she might be given food. The history of Eliphas rising up the daughter of Shunammite, and St. Paul raising Eutychus, the facts of the same order. The resurrection of Dorcas by St. Peter, narrated so simply in the Acts of the Apostles, is also a history, the truth of which can scarcely be reasonably questioned. That is not right. There are a lot of reasons to doubt any of the narratives in the Bible. We have dealt with those quite extensively. You can read the Bible as an allegory with no problems. If you try to read the Bible literally, you're going to run into a multitude of problems. Right? As an allegory, it works just fine. As real history, not nearly as well. The Old Testament can almost entirely be thrown out as a historical reference. It contains historical references, but it pulled them from other places. The Acts of the Apostles, they tie in rather well with some of the Hellenistic beliefs. They tie in fairly well with the Odyssey by Homer. There are significant reasons to doubt the veracity of Acts. Significant. There are so many that we didn't even deal with Acts when we did the Bible study, right? We dealt with the Gospels and dismissed them. Back to the text. Apollonius of Tyana seems to have accomplished similar miracles, and we ourselves have been the witness of facts which are not wanting in analogy with these. But the spirit of the century in which we live imposes in this respect the most careful reserve upon us. The thaumaturge being liable to a very indifferent reception at the hands of a discerning public, all of which does not hinder the earth from revolving or Galileo from having been a great man. Any time that you are countering the narrative, especially if that narrative is held by one of the control systems, you're going to face problems. And if you don't believe that, ask Socrates, ask Galileo, ask Copernicus. The resurrection of a dead person is the masterpiece of magnetism because it needs for its accomplishment the exercise of a kind of sympathetic omnipotence. I am not going to call that a masterpiece, right? It is a possible thing. It is a great work, but I will not call it a masterpiece. A masterpiece implies a good work. It is possible in the case of death by congestion, by suffocation, by exhaustion, or by hysteria. Eutychus, who was resuscitated by St. Paul after falling from a third story, was doubtless not seriously injured internally, but had succumbed to asphyxia, occasioned by the rush of air during his fall, or alternatively by the violent shock and the terror. Doubtless not seriously injured internally after falling from a third story is a wild assumption to make. Right? If you are unaware, you can die from falling from a height equal to you. Whatever your height is, you can fall from that equivalent height. If you are 6 foot tall and you're at 6 feet and you fall, it can be sufficient force to kill you. That is a thing. Third story is about 30 feet. That is significantly more than 6. To say that he was doubtlessly not seriously injured, that's a lot of assumptions, right? I'm assuming that he healed him. If the acts are recorded accurately, I'm assuming that he healed him because he almost certainly would have significant problems from falling from 30 feet. And that is not taking into the account the unlikeliness of a third story. All right. In a parallel case, he who feels conscious of the power and faith necessary for such an accomplishment must, like the apostle, practice insufflation, mouth to mouth, combined with contact of the extremities for the restoration of warmth. We do mouth to mouth resuscitation today. It was not a thing during the time of Mr. Eliphas Levi, not a common practice anyway. Were it simply a matter of what the ignorant call miracle, Elias and St. Paul, who made use of the same procedure, would simply have spoken in the name of Jehovah or of Christ. I agree. Now, I have not read this with the new eyes, right? We didn't go back through the Acts after we took off the glasses of predestination. So I was unaware, right? I didn't know that it was mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. That makes a lot of sense. It does. Especially if there are 2 instances of it. It is, occasionally, enough to take the person by the hand and raise them quickly, calling them in a loud voice. This procedure, which commonly succeeds in swoons, may even have effect upon the dead when the magnetizer who exercises it is endowed with speech, powerfully sympathetic, and possesses what may be called eloquence of tone. Now, in this particular instance, it is going to be exceptionally hard to differentiate between a swoon and death, right? Because swooning is passing out. It is suddenly going cataleptic and just falling down and not being responsive, right? That is a swoon. And so it will resemble death to the uninitiated, to the ones who don't know, right? But if you know that there is a possibility that they are still alive because they just fainted, then you could absolutely bring them back from the dead. Back to the text. He must also be tenderly loved or greatly respected by the person on whom he would operate, and he must perform the work with a great burst of faith and will, which we do not always find ourselves to possess in the first shock of a great sorrow. What is vulgarly called necromancy has nothing in common with resurrection, and it is at least highly doubtful that in operations connected with this application of magical power, we really come into correspondence with the souls of the dead whom we evoke. Yes. It is at least highly doubtful that in operations connected with this application of magical power, we really come into correspondence with the souls of the dead whom we evoke. Remember we talked about making something get possession of a body that was not necessarily their body to possess? There are 2 kinds of necromancy, that of light and that of darkness. The evocation by prayer, pentacle, and perfumes, and the evocation by blood, imprecations, and sacrileges. If blood is involved, it is the wrong thing, right? If there is a sacrifice of blood required, it is the wrong thing in every single instance in which it has been used. And if you accidentally hurt yourself in the process of a magical spell, that was the cost of the spell. It wasn't an accident, Sticks. It wasn't an accident. You are facing the repercussions, right? Side, right? We're going to get off into petty land, right? I've talked several times about this because it is prominent. Styx Hexenhammer is a political commentator who got into legal trouble in New Orleans, Louisiana, and he decided he was going to cast spells against the city of New Orleans, which, by the way, is remarkably stupid. Like, not even, like, misguided. Fucking stupid. Right? First off, you're motivated by hate and revenge. You took the actions which led to your judicial review. Why are you trying to place consequences on the people upholding the law? That's a big problem. Secondly, he's out there, he's edited hundreds, if not thousands, of occult literature. He has edited and printed them. He does this for a living. He does not understand the things that he is talking about, in the same way that Mr. Levi does not understand what he is talking about. He said that he performed this ritual. He went out and did this ritual and accidentally cut himself in the process of it. No, you fucking idiot. You cut yourself because that was the fucking cost of the spell. Now, what have the implications been? Has he received any good things from it? No. He's got insomnia. He's having a really hard time sleeping. I wonder why. He's having a hard time focusing. He's having a hard time staying in the present moment. I wonder why. He's still facing his legal consequences, but here's the kicker. This is why I'm talking about this today. First off, he put out a video about the last time that I called him out for this, right? I called him out in his comments. I was like, you're playing with forces that you do not understand, and you are facing the consequences of it. And then he put out a video about hedge witches and people who actually practice magic. And I don't know that it was aimed at me, but if it was, you absolutely picked the wrong one. And then he put out a video talking about Jimmy Swaggart, how Jimmy Swaggart died and how that is a result of his magical work. First off, I would not claim the death of someone completely unrelated to the issue at hand for magical work. That would probably be a bad idea. Second off, Jimmy Swaggart had nothing to do with New Orleans. Were you cursing the entire state? That was not your instated intentions. That would be exceedingly dumb too, because I reside in this state, and casting anything towards my state will probably repercuss upon you in ways that you cannot foresee. Third, Jimmy Swaggart was associated with Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He has an entire college right here on Segan or Highland. Right? There's a Bible college, there's a radio station, there is a bookstore, all because of Jimmy Swaggart. Here in Baton Rouge, separated from New Orleans, completely different things. But he wants it to appear as though he has done something. So he claimed Jimmy Swaggart dying as a result of his spell against New Orleans, which he cast wrong. There are two kinds of necromancy, that of light and that of darkness. And if it involves an evocation by blood, if there is a blood sacrifice required, you are doing stupid shit. Stop. Back to the text. We have only practiced the first and advised no one to devote themselves to the second. I second that. It is certain that the images of the dead do not appear to the magnetized persons who evoke them. It is certain, also, that they never reveal any mysteries of the life beyond. They are beheld as they exist in the memories of those who knew them, and, doubtless, as their reflections have left them impressed in the astral light. When evoked, specters reply to questions addressed to them. It is always by signs or by interior or imaginary impressions, never with a voice which really strikes the ears, and this is comprehensible enough, for how should a shadow speak? When evoked specters reply to questions addressed to them, it is always by signs. Now, this is one of those things too, right? Divine revelation happens by inspiration, right? The people who say that they were divinely inspired to write the Bible, God didn't guide their hand. At best, God gave them the words to write down. Now, they filtered that through their understanding. Everybody who has written a religious text is forming a religion. The five books of the first five books were forming Judaism, right? Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy were forming the foundation of Judaism. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and Acts was forming the religion of Christianity. You don't have to like that fact, but they were writing a book directed at people to change their thoughts. It's quite literally what they were doing. Was it right? Was it wrong? Who knows? I'm not going to argue with it. There is a lot wrong with the Bible. It should not be followed as a moral compass for a variety of reasons, especially if you're reading it literally. But divine inspiration happens through that voice. All of the things that I call divine revelations happen by inspiration from that voice. It wasn't an audible voice. It wasn't God saying, Pitt, I need you to move the energy in this way. That's not how it happened. I asked for healing, and through revelation of inspiration, I got the method by which I have healed myself. That is not the same thing, right? I asked for God to heal me. He showed me how to heal myself through revelation, which is inspiration. That is entirely subjective until it has been verified by outside sources. So why I relay it, and I tell you, it is speculation until somebody else has done it. I've healed me, right? I can talk, I can move my shoulder, I can twist my body, I can pick shit up, I can walk. That is entirely because of magic. Those things were not possible a year and a half ago. Those things came about because of divine inspiration, but I checked them, right? You can check your inspiration. Does it accord with truth? Is it for the greater good of all people? Does it involve blood sacrifice? Are there energetic investments that might be negatively attached? Right? You can go through and check this inspiration that I got. Is it really divinely revealed? Or is it possibly really divinely revealed? Or is it from one of these entities that are not necessarily the ones that we want to call in? Personally, I believe that there is a lot of that in the Bible. With what instrument could it cause the air to vibrate by impressing it in such a manner as to make distinct sounds? At the same time, electrical contacts are experienced from apparitions and sometimes appear to be produced by the hand of the phantom. But the phenomena is wholly subjective and is occasioned solely by the power of imagination and the local wealth of the occult force, which we term the astral light. The electrical contacts, I do not doubt, because what is magic? The manipulation of the electromagnetic forces of creation. You absolutely can create a current within yourself. I absolutely believe that, even though I haven't hooked up any leads to check it, right? I move the energy through me, around me, or like all kinds of places. And so that is quite literally how it works. And if there was a spirit, I would expect them to be able to do that. Absolutely. The proof of this is that spirits, or at least the specters pretended to be such, may indeed occasionally touch us, but we cannot touch them, and this is one of the most frightening characteristics of these apparitions, which are at times so real in appearance that we cannot, unmoved, feel the hand pass through that which seems a body without touching or meeting anything. We read in ecclesiastical historians that Spiridon, bishop of Trimethiante, afterward invoked as a saint, called up the spirit of his daughter Irene to ascertain from her the whereabouts of some concealed money which she had taken in charge for a traveler. There are entities that can answer that question that are not your daughter, right? There are entities on the sixth plane that can see backwards and forwards in time. They don't really understand what they're seeing, but they can see all of the things. They can tell you where this was. Doesn't mean that it was your daughter, right? Swedenborg communicated habitually with the so-called dead, whose forms appeared to him in the astral light. That did not have to be dead entities. It could be other entities. They are allowed to deceive you, at least half of them. Several credible persons of our acquaintance have assured us that they have been revisited for years by the dead who were dear to them. The celebrated atheist, Sylvanus Marechal, manifested to his widow and one of her friends to acquaint her with a sum of 1,500 francs, which he had concealed in a secret drawer. This anecdote was related to us by an old friend of the family. Evocations should always have a motive and a becoming end. Otherwise, they are works of darkness and folly, most dangerous for health and reason. To evoke out of pure curiosity and to find out whether we shall see anything is to be predisposed to fruitless fatigue. The transcendental sciences admit of neither doubt nor puerility. You should not be doing any magical works idly. That I agree with. The permissible motive of an evocation may be either love or intelligence. Evocations of love require less apparatus and are in every respect easier. The procedure is as follows. We must, in the first place, carefully collect the memorials of him or her whom we desire to behold, the articles he used and on which his impressions remain. We must also prepare an apartment in which the person lived, or otherwise one of a similar kind, and place his portrait, veiled in white therein, surrounded with his favorite flowers, which must be renewed daily. A fixed date must then be observed, either the birthday of the person or that day which was most fortunate for his and our own affection. One of which we may believe that his soul, however blessed elsewhere, cannot lose the remembrance. This must be the day for the evocation, and we must provide for it during the space of 14 days. Throughout this period we must refrain from extending to anyone the same proofs of affection which we have the right to expect from the dead. We must observe strict chastity, live in retreat, and take only one modest and light collation daily. Every evening at the same hour we must shut ourselves in the chamber consecrated to the memory of the lamented person, using only one small light, such as that of a funeral lamp or taper. This light should be placed behind us. The portrait should be uncovered, and we should remain before it for an hour in silence. Finally, we should fumigate the apartment with a little good incense and go out backwards. On the morning of the day fixed for the evocation, we should adorn ourselves as if for a festival, not salute anyone first, make but a single repast of bread, wine, and roots, or fruits. The cloth should be white, 2 covers should be laid, and one portion of the bread broken should be set aside. A little wine should also be placed in the glass of the person we design to invoke. The meal must be eaten alone in the chamber of evocations, and in presence of the veiled portrait. It must all be cleared away at the end, except the glass belonging to the dead person, and his portion of the bread, which must be placed before the portrait. In the evening, at the hour for the regular visit, we must repair in silence to the chamber, light a clear fire of cypress wood, and cast incense 7 times thereon, pronouncing the name of the person whom we desire to behold. The lamp must then be extinguished, and the fire permitted to die out. On this day the portrait must not be unveiled. When the flame is extinct, put up more incense on the ashes and invoke God according to the forms of the religion to which the dead person belonged, and according to the ideas which he himself possessed of God. While making this prayer, we must identify ourselves with the evoked person, speak as he spoke, believe in a sense as he believed. Then, after a silence of 15 minutes, we must speak to him as if he were present, with affection and with faith, praying to him to manifest to us. Renew this prayer mentally, covering the face with both hands, then calling thrice with a loud voice. Tarry on our knees, the eyes closed or covered for some minutes, then call thrice upon him in a sweet and affectionate tone, and slowly open the eyes. Should nothing result, the same experiment must be renewed in the following year, and if necessary, a 3rd time, when it is certain that the desired apparition will be obtained, and the longer it has been delayed, the more realistic and striking it will be. I held my comments to the end because all of that is useless, right? All of the tools, they're tools. You can use them. They have no power on their own. They don't necessarily have to be included in any of this. I believe that it is possible to talk to the dead. I believe that you can evoke them. I believe it is a remarkably bad idea, and it is entirely likely that you will not hear back because they are probably not here. Right? Now, it is entirely possible to call someone back from eternity, but why would you want to? Right? The whole thing to me is an exercise in futility. There's not going to be a whole lot useful that is going to come from the dead. Maybe you can get some closure. Probably not. Right? All of the ceremonies, you can go through them. If you properly invest the energy in the proper ways, you may get some results. But the ceremony in and of itself holds absolutely no power. The requirements here are quite arbitrary, and therefore there's not a whole lot for me to talk about in it other than to say you can try it if you want, but I don't recommend it, and there's probably not a good idea. Evocations of knowledge and intelligence are made with more solemn ceremonies. If concerned with a celebrated personages, we must meditate for 21 days upon his life and writings. Form an idea of his appearance, converse with him mentally, and imagine his answers. Carry his portrait, or at least his name, about us. Follow a vegetable diet for 21 days, and a severe fast during the last 7. I will point out once again that fasting serves a purpose, but if you are making regular procedures of don't eat meat, you're doing life wrong, right? If you think that veganism is the way, you're wrong. If you think the carnivore diet is the way, you're wrong. You can achieve some amazing results by altering your diet over a short period of time. That is true. Cutting carbs out of your diet, it will make a difference in how you look. But your body will eventually adjust to that and will put back on weight, even if you're not eating carbs. Calories in, calories out. It's really that simple, right? Any time that you have someone who is living a life of veganism, the joke is, how do you know if somebody's a vegan? You just wait, they'll tell you, right? They're very proud of it. It's prideful. If you're living an ascetic life, as we have mentioned several times, a life where you can never eat meat, that is pride, right? A life where you never have sex, that is pride. A life where you give away all that you own to the poor, that is pride, right? All of these things are pride. They all go back to pride. Pride is one of the worst of the sins because of that. There is so much rooted in that. This, I am better than you because I do this thing that you do not, is pride, right? Whether that is food, whether that is sex, whether that is going to the club, whether that is reading more books, whatever it is that you think you are better than someone else because you do and they don't, is pride. That is one of the sins, and it will bite you in the ass more times than it helps you. And that is not to say that you should not have pride. If you do something and you do it well, there's nothing wrong with being proud of that. If you have an endeavor, writing a book or studying for a class or working at your job, and you do it well, there's nothing wrong with being prideful in that. Not to the point where you're beating other people over the head with your pride, but definitely to the point of, I accomplished this because of my dedication. There's nothing wrong with that. All right, back to the text. We must next construct a magical oratory, described in the 13th chapter of our doctrine. This oratory must be invariably darkened, but if we operate in the daytime, we may leave a narrower aperture on the side where the sun will shine at the hour of evocation, and place a triangular prism before this opening, and a crystal globe filled with water before the prism. Again, tools have no power by themselves. If the operation be arranged for night, the magical lamp must be so placed that his single ray shall fall upon the altar smoke. The purpose of these preparations is to furnish the magic agent with elements of corporeal appearance, and to ease as much as possible the tension of imagination, which could not be exalted without danger into the absolute illusion of dream. For the rest, it will be easily understood that a beam of sunlight or the ray of a lamp, colored variously, and falling upon curling and irregular smoke, can in no way create a perfect image. The chafing dish containing the sacred fire should be in the center of the oratory, and the altar of perfumes hard by. The operator must turn towards the east to pray and the west to invoke. He must be either alone or assisted by 2 persons, preserving the strictest silence. He must wear the magical vestments, which we have described in the 7th chapter, and must be crowned with vervain and gold. He should bathe before the operation, and under all his garments must be of the most intact and scrupulous cleanliness. The ceremony should begin with a prayer suited to the genius of the spirit about to be invoked, and one which would be approved by himself if he still lived. For example, it would be impossible to evoke Voltaire by reciting prayers in the style of St. Bridget. For the great men of antiquity, we may use the hymns of Cleanthes or Orpheus, with the adjuration terminating the golden verses of Pythagoras. In our own evocation of Apollonius, we use the magical philosophy of Patricus for the ritual, containing the doctrines of Zoroaster and the writings of Hermes Trismegistus. We recited the Nocturmerion of Apollonius in Greek with a loud voice and added the following conjuration. Vouchsafe to be present, O Father of all, and thou thrice mighty Hermes, conductor of the dead. Asclepius, son of Hephaestus, patron of the healing art, and thou, Osiris, lord of strength and vigor, do thou thyself be present too. Arnibasinius, patron of philosophy, and yet again Asclepius, son of Amuthie, who presidest over poetry. Apollonius, 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 thou teachest the magic of Zoroaster, son of Oromasdes, and this is the worship of the gods. For the evocation of spirits belonging to religions issued from Judaism, the following Kabbalistic invocation of Solomon should be used, either in Hebrew or in any other tongue with which the spirit in question is known to have been familiar. Powers of the kingdom, be ye under my left foot and in my right hand. Glory and eternity, take me by the 2 shoulders and direct me in the path of victory. Mercy and justice, be ye the equilibrium and splendor of my life. Intelligence and wisdom crown me. Spirits of Malkuth, lead me betwixt the 2 pillars upon which rests the whole edifice of the temple. Angels of Netzah and Hod, strengthen me upon the cubic stone of Jesed. O Geduel, O Gaburiel, O Tifereth Beniel, be thou my love. Ruach Hokmeel, be thou my light. Be that which thou art, and thou shalt be, O Ketheriel. Ishim, assist me in the name of Sarai. Cherubim, be my strength in the name of Adonai. Beni Elohim, be my brethren in the name of the Son, and by the powers of the Zabaoth. In the name of the Son, for Judaism, you say. Elohim, do battle me in the name of the Tetragrammaton. You're going to fight the Elohim in the name of the Tetragrammaton, eh? Malachim, protect me in the name of the Yad-He-Vahi. Seraphim, cleanse my love in the name of Elvo. Hasmalim, enlighten me with the splendors of Eloi and Shekinah. Aralim, act. Aphaniam, resolve and shine. Hejath, Kadash, cry, speak, roar, bellow. Kadash, 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 Sadai, Adonai, Jatkava, Ezadarizi. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Amen. It should be remembered above all, in conjurations, that the names of Satan, Beelzebub, Adramelech, and others do not designate spiritual unities, but legions of impure spirits. Our name is Legion, for we are many, says the spirit of darkness in the gospel. That was a very specific case, all right? he was dealing with legion, which was many demons. He was not dealing with Satan. He was not dealing with Beelzebub or Adramelech. Those are different entities. There were entities associated with the beggar or the hermit or whatever he was, that they drove the spirit out into the pigs who ran off into the water. Now, why this Jew guy was raising pigs is a question that you might be able to answer, but a better one is, no real name was given, right? There was no calling upon Satan. There was no calling upon Beelzebub. There was no calling upon Adramelech. He asked the name. They said, "We are legion, for we are many." Well, legion quite literally means 100, right? It might be 1,000, right? But it's literally a designator of a force for the Romans, right? It was a multitude. That's where the name came from. It wasn't a reference to either one of those three entities, and to say that it was is ingenious at best. Number constitutes the law, and progress takes place inversely in hell. Remember that there is no reason to believe that hell exists according to the Old Testament. That is to say, which Jews, right? This is Kabbalah. This is based upon Judaism, and there is no hell in the Old Testament. There is the land of the dead. It is not the same thing. That is to say, the most advanced in satanic development, and consequently the most degraded and the least intelligent and feeblest. Thus, a fatal law drives the demons downward when they wish and believe themselves to be ascending. So also, those who turn themselves chiefs are the most impotent and despised of all. As to the horde of perverse spirits, they tremble before an unknown, invisible, incomprehensible, capricious, implacable chief, who never explains his laws, whose arm is ever stretched out to strike those who fail to understand him. That sounds like Yahweh. They give this phantom the names of Baal, Jupiter, and even others more venerable, which cannot, without profanation, be pronounced in hell. But this phantom is only the shadow and remnant of God, disfigured by their willful perversity, and persisting in their imagination like a vengeance of justice and a remorse of truth. When the evoked spirit of light manifests with dejected or irritated countenance, we must offer him a moral sacrifice, that is, be inwardly disposed to renounce whatever offends him. And before leaving the oratory, we must dismiss him, saying, "May peace be with thee. I have not wished to trouble thee. Do thou not torment me not. I shall labor to improve myself as to anything that vexes thee. I pray, and will still pray, with thee and for thee. Pray thou also both with and for me, and return to thy great slumber, expecting that day when we shall awake together. Silence and adieu." We must not close this chapter without giving some details on black magic for the benefit of the curious. The practices of the Thessalonian sorcerers and Roman Canaanites are described by several ancient authors. In the first place, a pit was dug, the mouth at which they cut the throat of a black sheep. That tells you right there it's the wrong thing, right? Blood sacrifice being required means that it is the wrong thing. The psyllae and larvae, presumed to be present and swarming round to drink the blood, were driven off with the magic sword. Why call them in, then? The triple hecate and the infernal gods were evoked, and the phantom, whose apparition was desired, was called upon 3 times. In the Middle Ages, necromancers violated tombs, composed philters and unguents with the fat and blood of corpses, combined with aconite, belladonna, and poisonous fungi. They boiled and skimmed these frightful compounds over fires nourished with human bones and crucifixes stolen from churches. They added dust of dried toads and ash of consecrated hosts. They anointed their temples, hands, and breasts with the infernal unguent. Trace the diabolical pentacles, evoke the dead beneath gibbets or in deserted graveyards. Their howlings were heard from afar, and belated travelers, imagining that legions of phantoms rose out of the earth. The very trees, in their eyes, assumed appalling shapes. Fiery orbs gleamed in the thickets. Frogs in the marshes seemed to echo mysterious words of the Sabbath with croaking voices. It was the magnetism of hallucination, the contagion of madness. What do you think you're going to get? Like, what else are you going to get from this? You have aconite, belladonna, poisonous fungi, which belladonna is. You have, well, no, belladonna's not a fungi, it's a plant. Boiled and skimmed them, right? So you purified them. You over human bones. Dried toads, which isn't going to do a whole lot, but the ash of consecrated host, are you kidding me? Did you think you were going to get good effects out of this? The end of the procedure in black magic was to disturb reason and produce the feverish excitement which emboldens to great crimes. The grimoires, formerly seized and burnt by authority everywhere, are certainly not harmless books. Sacrilege, murder, theft are indicated or hinted as means to realization in almost all of these works. Thus, in the Great Grimoire and its modern version, The Red Dragon, there is a recipe entitled Composition of Death or Philosophical Stone, a broth of aqua fortis, copper, arsenic, and verdigris. There are also necromantic processes comprising of the tearing up of earth from graves with the nails, dragging out bones, placing them crosswise on the breast, then assisting at midnight mass on Christmas Eve, and flying out of the church at the moment of consecration, crying, "Let the dead rise from their tombs." Then, returning to the graveyard, taking a handful of earth nearest to the coffin, running back to the door of the church, which has been alarmed by the clamor, depositing the two bones crosswise, again shouting, "Let the dead rise from their tombs," and then, if we escape being seized and shut up in a madhouse, retiring at a slow pace and counting 4,500 steps in a straight line, which means following a broad road or scaling walls. Having traversed this space, you must lie down upon the earth, place yourself as if in a coffin, and repeat in lugubrious tones, "Let the dead rise from their tombs." What do you think the odds of you getting this number right are? 4,500 steps in a straight line. What are the odds of you getting that exactly right? Finally, call thrice on the person whose apparition you desire. No doubt, anyone who is mad enough and wicked enough to abandon himself to such operations is predisposed to all chimeras and all phantoms. Hence, the recipe of the Grand Grimoire is most efficacious, but we advise none of our readers to have recourse to it. And that is going to bring us to the end of Necromancy. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a somewhat difficult topic. I understand that I hold some unconventional beliefs, and I have a tendency to step on toes when I relay those. It is not intentional, but it is not something I apologize for. The things that were outlined in this book, you can try them. There is no reason to, right? There is no reason to call back from the dead. I understand grief. I do. God forbid I ever get placed in the situation, because I actually do have power, and God willing, if I am in the situation, I will go in accordance with divine will, right? It is easy to say that when you're not in the situation. But what I would do and what is described here are completely different things. What I would do if I were to attempt this would be to call for the spirit to come back. Not to demand, not to force, not to make it happen, but to ask it to happen. To lend some energy to the process, if need be, so that it can happen, but not to force it, because that would be stepping across a line that you should not step across. Following the darker things in here will absolutely have terrible repercussions for you. Anything involving blood sacrifice is automatically damned. Like, straight off the top, if it requires you to shed a life in order to accomplish it, you are doing it wrong. If it requires the spilling of the living medium being your blood, if that is a requirement, don't do it. That's my advice. You don't have to take it. A lot of people don't take my advice. Most people don't make it this far in the video. If you have made it this far and you are looking to do real things, look at the playlist. I have real things that you can do without repercussions. I have the steps to make sure that you don't get repercussions. I advise you against everything in here all of the time, right? The ceremonies, you can use them. There's no reason to. The tools, you can use them. There's no reason to. The motives, you probably shouldn't use them. We bring people back from the dead all the time. It is commonplace these days. It really is. Every day in a hospital, name the hospital, they brought somebody back from the dead. It happens all of the time, but not on a magical level, right? That energetic infusion that you give to the situation brings the reverberations to you. Using the tool to do the thing, that's not going to have the same reverberations. It's not. Your will expressly invested into something is what causes the problems. Make sure that you're aligned with the 8 laws of creation. Then you don't have nothing to worry about. Your motivation for calling back the dead is almost certainly going to be selfish. That is going to repercuss upon you. It really is. If you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, a share, a follow, throw me a comment. If you agree or disagree with anything that was said, put it in the box down below, and if it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. If there is another work you would like to see me discuss in the manner that we are doing here, drop that in the box as well. If you really like what I'm doing over here, hit me with that super thanks. Consider joining for a membership or picking up a copy of my book. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pit State. Peace.